Welcome to Finding Holiness, where we delve into timeless Torah wisdom, revealing the sacred in everyday moments. Join us on a journey to elevate your spirituality and discover holiness in every aspect of life. I'm your host, Rabbi David Kadosh, and together, let's embark on a path of spiritual exploration. I hope you enjoy this next episode. Erev Tov, everybody. Welcome to another edition of our Thursday night Parashat Shavua class. Glad to have you here live. Hybrid. We're back into hybrid, yeah? They're missing good food. We jealousized you prior to the previous lockdown, and now we are post lockdown, and we are here with delicious hamin that the kahal is enjoying here tonight, and you are all welcome in partaking next time. Please join us in person, but if you can't join us in person, then second best option is live. So I appreciate all the people that are joining us tonight, and third best option is hearing the shiur tomorrow before Shabbat on the Parashat Shavua. That's what the Thursday night Parashat Shavua is all about. I want to welcome all of our listeners on the Finding Holiness podcast, findingholiness.com, findingholiness.buzzsprout.com. Bruchim Habayim. Tonight's shiur is dedicated and sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Maurice Buzaglo in memory of his mother, Mrs. Esther Buzaglo Zichrona Ibracha. The words of Torah that we say this evening be Le'ilui Nishmata Tihi Nafsha Tzerura Bisror HaHayim. Normally, on the Thursday night class, we delve into the works of Rav Pinchas Friedman, Shlita, and we go quite deep. And tonight, with your permission, we're going to go a different route, or a different route for our American listeners, and Super Bowl Sunday different routes, yeah. And we're gonna look at the words of Rav Elimelech Biderman, Shlita, who arguably has one of the most downloaded alonim, the most downloaded, what can I say, series of Divrei Torah weekly. Mayanot Shel Torah, the Torah Wellsprings, is widely distributed in many, many languages across the world. And when you get to parashiyot such as Teruma, Tetzave, parashiyot that are hard to understand, then it's best that we look at the remez aspect of each of these mitzvot. And we're going to focus tonight, Bezat Hashem, on the opening passage of the parasha, that of the Shemen Lamaor, that of the Menorah, and the olive oil, the pure olive oil that was put in the Menorah to kindle it. This week's parasha discusses the mitzvah of kindling the lights of the Menorah in the Mishkan with pure olive oil. The Gemara in Masechet Menachot says that there are 9 levels of quality olive oil listed. Nine levels of different quality of olive oil. The olive oil was used daily in the Bet HaMikdash to light the menorah, and as well it was used for the menachot, the flour oil offerings. Ideally, to perform these mitzvot, the highest quality extra virgin olive oil was used. The Rambam in Hilchot Isurei Mizbeach asks a question: why are there 9 levels of olive oil listed if all of them are kosher? And he answers, the reason is so that we will know which olive oil is best, which is the best one, which is the medium, which is the porous quality. So a big lesson is learned here, according to Rav Biderman. A person often wants to overcome his yetzer hara, wants to overcome his evil inclination, and be generous. And that person needs to bring that korban or that offering or whatever it is to defeat the yetzer hara with that which is the best quality, with that which is the ultimate of the ultimate. The Torah tells us that when Cain and Hevel both brought their korbanot, thank you very much. When Cain and Hevel both brought their korbanot, the Torah says, "Mi bechorot tzono umechel behen," that Cain brought from the choicest of his flock, from the best of his animals. And Vayisha Adonai el Cain ve'el minchato. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu turned to Hevel and his korban. So we see that because Cain brought the best of his korban, the best of what he had, so therefore we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu paid close attention to what he had. So the same is true for everything that we do for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He should choose the most beautiful, the best quality. You want to build a Bet Knesset, you want to build the most beautiful Bet Knesset. You want to feed the hungry, you're going to give him the best of your food. You're going to give him the sweetest of your table. When you give clothing to the poor people, you're going to give the nicest clothing. When you're going to donate something to the Bet HaMikdash, you're going to donate the most precious item that you have. That's the idea over here, that the olive oil was that of the purest kind, and that's what was used for the menorah. There was a story once of an old, battered poor individual in clothing that was all schlepped out and worn out, and he came to the home of one Hasidic Rebbe. The Rebbe had a lot of compassion on him, and he saw the guy's hat was all shriveled up and discolored. So the rabbi had some compassion on him, and he went to his closet and he took out a brand new hat from his closet and he gave it to the old man, the poor man. So when the poor man left, some of the students went to the Rebbe and said, "Rabbi, the hat that you're wearing right now, it's much more beautiful than the hat that the poor man was wearing. You should have given the hat that you were wearing and kept the new one, the beautiful one, for you in your closet, and just wear that one." So he answered the students. He said, "You understand? I did keep the best hat for myself. I gave my best hat for tzedakah. So in essence, what I get to keep, the sachar, the reward that I get to keep by performing the mitzvah with the best item that I had, that's my reward in Gan Eden." So too, ideally for the menorah and the korban mincha, one needs to use the highest quality of olive oil. Nevertheless, all 9 levels of oil, like the Rambam says, like we mentioned in the beginning, are all kosher for the mincha. But for the menorah, when it comes to lighting the menorah, only 3 categories of the olive oil are kasher. Katit lamaor, the pasuk says in this week's parasha, pressed oil for illumination. And Rashi says that the olives are pressed and they're not ground, meaning there shouldn't be any sediments in the oil. Once the first drop of oil is drawn out, then that oil is used for the menorah, and then the olives are put back into the mill and ground. The second oil, once they're ground again, that second oil is pasul for the menorah. But it's kosher for the menachot. It's kosher for the korban mincha. Katit la ma'or. The first oil that comes out, that's for the menorah, for the ma'or, for the illumination. But it doesn't say katit la menachot. For the korban mincha, that's okay. That's once it's ground up, then you can use that second oil. On the other hand, humans, for lighting, we don't need the best oil. Right? We want the best oil for eating. When it comes to our food, that's when we look for the best, highest quality oil. Unlike the Bet HaMikdash, where the oil was the best oil was required for the menorah, the secondary oils for the menachot. Human beings think differently, which also teaches an important lesson. The menorah represents the light of Torah. Anything that is attributed to the menorah is in reference to the Torah and mitzvot. The meal offerings, which is the korban mincha, that is in reference to our parnasah, the sustenance that we have. So the purest oils used in the menorah tell us that we should only seek the best when it comes to the Torah mitzvot. Anything that has to do with Torah and mitzvot, I gotta go full throttle, pure. And the secondary oil for the menachot reminds us that the second grade is also good enough for the parnasah. It's also good for our sustenance, which is opposite on how we normally think. Again, unfortunately, when it comes to olam hazeh, when it comes to the materialism and the physical pleasures and what we enjoy, that's when we aim for the best. We want the best car. We want the most beautiful home. If our neighbor has something better than us, we're jealous. We're envious. We want what he has. We become sick with envy. And we want the best of the gashmiut, of the physicality. But when it comes to the ruchniut, unfortunately, we're satisfied with the mediocre stuff. Okay, it's okay. I don't need to have the best tefillah. I don't need to know a little bit more Torah. I hear the rabbi shiur once a week. I think that's enough. Okay, it's okay. I don't want to go too high up on the level. And if a neighbor prays better than me, if a neighbor knows more Torah than me, it's okay. I can live with that. I'm not jealous of my neighbor when it comes to that, right? I'm definitely not going to emulate him. Why is that the case? Why aren't we putting our full effort and going full throttle when it comes to the Torah? So with the halachot of olive oil, all right, the best is used for the menorah and second grade for the menachot. The Torah and the mitzvot, we need to strive for the best, the utmost success. And when it comes to olam hazeh, when it comes to the physical parts of this world, you can be satisfied with a little bit less. You don't need to have the top. That's the first lesson in this week's parasha from Rabbi Biderman. Second lesson, he says, is with regard to the preparation and the mindset the person has when performing mitzvot. The Torah tells us, Ya'aroch oto Aharon ubanav, that Aharon and his son shall arrange the menorah. What is the meaning that he shall arrange the menorah? Ya'aroch oto Aharon. So the Rishonim explain that there are certain mitzvot involved with preparation of the menorah. There's the dishon and the hatavat menorah. The dishon, the trumat hadeshen, okay, is the cleaning of the ashes, and as well the preparation of the menorah every single morning, so that the kohen will be able to light it at night, so that every morning while they bring the korban tamid, the kohen removes the old wicks, he cleans the lamps from the leftover oil, he puts in new oil, he puts in fresh wicks. Everything is there set for that night. Now, regarding the menorah, there are two mitzvot. There's the lighting the menorah right before nightfall, and there's preparing the menorah in the morning for the next time. What's interesting is that a lot of people don't know this, is that the mitzvah of the preparation, the cleaning out, the putting the wicks, the new oil, is performed exclusively by the Kohanim. Ya'aroch oto Aharon ubanav. Aharon and his sons. Only the Kohanim are able to perform this mitzvah. However, anybody can light the menorah. It's not exclusively for the Kohanim. Again, this halacha seems to go exactly against what we would assume. We would think that the lighting of the menorah is the primary part of the mitzvah, and that's what should be performed by the Kohanim, which is the highest grade of Jews, so to speak, rather the highest level, the most pure. And you would think when it comes to the preparation, okay, give it to the Levi, give it to Israel. All right? It's just a preparation. Lehefech. The opposite is true. Only the Kohanim can prepare the menorah, but any Jew can light the menorah. So what does this teach us? That the preparation is the most important part. It's the most necessary chelik of all the mitzvot we perform. The actual deed, thank you very much, and the results of the mitzvah are not in our hands, they're in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh bidbaro. Amen. There was once again a Hasid that saw his Rebbe, the Yismach Yisrael Zecher Tzadik Libracha. He snuck in to watch him light Chanukah candles, and he was sneaking from a corner from the side, watching what he was going to do, and he saw the intense devotion, the itlaavut, that kavanah that the rabbi was doing, pouring the oil, preparing the wicks. He was so motivated to do that, and at that moment he said to himself, I can't wait to see what's going to happen when he actually lights the Hanukkah for Hanukkah. But what happened when the rabbi lit the candles? He just seemed like his regular self. Said the beracha, lit the candles, walked away. And he couldn't understand. How does someone from the outside externally understand what's going in? It doesn't make sense. Shouldn't the mitzvah be performed with greater hitlavut in the preparations? So he didn't want to come out of the hiding spot because he didn't want to embarrass. He didn't want to show the rabbi that he was hiding. But the next day, the rabbi figured that someone was watching him, and he went over to the chassid and he says, "Listen, a person's chelik in the mitzvah is his preparation. When he performs the mitzvah, Hashem sends inspiration from above. At that point, it's not in your hands anymore." And that's what we see, again, from the menorah. The primary part was the preparation, the preparing the menorah. And therefore, the preparations could only be done by the Kohanim themselves. It couldn't be done by any other Jew. But lighting the menorah, that's already mostly in God's hands. So if that's the case, anyone can perform that part of the mitzvah. It's a great concept that we need to learn. That this idea of hachana la mitzvah, the preparation for the mitzvah, is greater than the performance, because this is because the preparations are in our hands versus that of the actual mitzvah is already in Hashem's hands. Maybe that's why we associate the mitzvah of Mareh Ketav, Hagbaha, Gerilah, as to be so important, right? Greater than holding the Torah. That's the ultimate preparation. When we lift up the Torah, I know our Achenu Ashkenazim do it after the Keriyah, but we Sfaradim, we do it before, we lift it up. Like, this is what we're about to do right now, and it's one of the greatest mitzvot that we have. I always say a person should, when they're bidding for mitzvot, that's one that they should go and bid for, because it's definitely up there in terms of its quality. Rashi says, also with regard to the menorah, katit la maor, like we said, the olives are pressed for the illumination, velo katit la menachot. But they're not pressed for the korban mincha, the meal offering. And the Hatam Sofer says that this hints that a person has to constantly press and push himself towards ruchniut, like we said, is represented by the menorah. But the person doesn't need to press or try so hard when it comes to the gashmiut, when it comes to the meal offerings or the menachot or the sustenance that he has. We don't need to toil so hard when it comes to our parnasah, because Hashem gives us the parnasah. Our toil needs to be that of attaining yirat shamayim and yirat chet, fear of God, fear of sin. That's something that we choose on our own. Chachamim say, "Akol bidei shamayim chutz miyirat shamayim." Everything is the hand of God except for yirat shamayim, fear of God. That's something that only we can attain by ourselves. That's another example, again, on how people can perceive things differently, says Rav Biderman. Many people think that parnasah is for them to attain. So it's up to me. But yirat shamayim, that's something that God will give them, will give us. No, the opposite. Hashem gives us parnasah, and yirat shamayim is the only thing that's in our hands. In fact, one of the Alexander Rebbe has an unbelievable perush in one of the Mishnayot in Perkei Avot. The Mishnah is a very famous Mishnah in the 5th parak that says, Sheli, Shelach, Shelach, Sheli, Ama Aretz. A person who says, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine, it's Ama Aretz. It's an ignorant fool. So the Alexander Rebbe explains that this Mishnah is referring to the mistake that people might refer to. A person who says, Sheli, my portion, what I'm supposed to attain for myself, Yirat Shamayim, is Shelcha, is yours, God, meaning that's what you have to give me. And as well, someone who says, Shelcha, God, the parnasah that you give me, Sheli, I'm the one who's attaining it, then Amaretz. This guy's an Amaretz. He has no idea how the world works. That's not how it works. The parnasah is something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu provides for me. It's not Sheli. And Yirat Shamayim, that's Sheli. And not Shelach. Not what's yours. He said, Amaretz, because it's the exact opposite. You have to attain the Yirat Shamayim, Hashem gives you the parnasah. And that's really that comes to the Emunah B'tachon, arguably the top of the list of midot that we have to acquire. When a person believes that Hashem watches over him and has full hashgacha pratit, then he knows that even when he doesn't work hard, God is going to give him exactly what he needs. He won't spend his days earning wealth because he has bitachon, that whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu destined to give him, he's going to give him. And he can't earn more or less an amount. He brings an unbelievable story that I thought was amusing, funny, and yet teaches us a great lesson at the same time. In the city of Slonim in Lithuania, this community appreciated always a very, very good hazan. And they had an ear for talent, and every year they would hire the top hazan for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. This was something that they cared deeply about. And they didn't care about the long tefillot, because every moment you knew you were getting a good hazan. It was very, very pleasurable. There was a problem though. Other communities around, before the age of internet, they figured out that this community always got the best hazanim. So immediately after Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they would find out who was the hazan of Salonim. They would go up to them and say, next year, come work for us. And they would sign the contract. So came the next Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And the city of Salonim, this community, kept on finding new hazanim. One year, they couldn't find a really good hazan. All the super talented hazanim were in different communities around. Lithuania. So they just had to hire a mediocre, the best Chazan that they could find. And his voice was weak, couldn't reach the back of the Bet Knesset, but that was the best they could find. But they said, you know what, we're not going to go through this next year. Right after Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, that community of Shlonim, they took this mediocre Chazan and said, hey, come here. We're signing you now 10-year contract, no movement clause, no trade clause. You're here, you're staying with us. And they signed him to a contract for 10 years. And then now he can't go anywhere else for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Now, the Rav of Shlonim, Rav Aizel Charif, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, he heard about this contract, and he told him, you guys are crazy. He started cracking up. He laughed at them. He goes, why are you laughing? He goes, let me tell you what happened in this city 30 years ago. He goes, the cemetery in Shlonim was overcrowded. Too many people, was getting full. So the community decided that they wanted to buy a new plot of land and dedicate this to the new cemetery of the city. But the problem is it remained vacant. People preferred the old cemetery. It was occupied. There were tzaddikim buried there. Nobody wanted to go to the new cemetery. They wanted to go to the old cemetery. So what did the Chevra Kadisha do to encourage people to go to the new cemetery? That they announced they wouldn't charge anybody. The first 10 people that passed away and the family decided to bury in the new cemetery, free plot. Not only that, we would give a stipend, a gift to that family of 1,000 rubles. This is what was going to happen. So they announced this, flyers, sent a mass email, right? And you would think nobody. Still remained vacant. Nobody wanted to go to the new cemetery. Weeks passed, and Pesach was approaching, and there was a poor couple, and the wife was urging the husband, because you got to find some work, you got to do something. We have no food for Pesach. We need to find food for Pesach, right? One day, the husband comes home. He says, "I have a solution. I know what we're going to do. We're going to have money for Pesach. We're going to buy all the things you need for Yom Tov." Okay, great. What's the plan? The wife tells the husband. Because I heard that the Chevra Kadisha is offering 1,000 rubles to families who choose to bury their loved ones in the new cemetery, right? I got an idea. I'm going to pretend that I died, okay? You are going to cry and wail over me. You're going to rip your clothing and go the whole thing. And when the Chevra Kadisha comes and offer you 1,000 rubles if they're going to bury me in the new cemetery, tell them you agree. You're going to take the 1,000 rubles up front, but without the money, don't begin the funeral, right? You got to get the money. Don't worry about me. I'm going to find a way to escape. We're going to have money to buy matzah. We're going to have money to buy the wine for the 4 arba kosot. We're going to have all the groceries, the lamb, whatever it is. We're going to have the money. The wife says, "Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? This is what you're thinking? I'm not going to have anything to do with this. I refuse. I want nothing to do with it." Okay, problem is, fast forward, it's now 13th day of Nisan, 2 days before Pesach. They still have no food in the pantry. They got no money. And finally she agreed. She goes, "Okay, fine, we got no choice." So the husband, "You ready? Let's do it." The husband lays on the floor, and the wife starts screaming and crying and wailing. And everyone comes in, "What's going on? My husband died. What a tragedy." She rips her clothes, right? And then, look at what a chaval, the young man or younger man leaving an almana, orphans. What are we going to do? Chevra Kadisha comes, and they told her, "Listen, if you permit us to bury your husband in the new cemetery, the burial is going to cost you nothing, and we're going to give you 1,000 rubles." So the wife said, "When am I going to get the rubles?" She goes, "You get the rubles within a month, that's when you'll get the money." She said, "I can't wait a month. I need the money now. If you give me the money within an hour or two, I'm going to permit you to take my husband to the new cemetery." So now, the Chevra Kadisha stopped to think, goes, "Listen, we haven't had anybody wish to be buried in the new cemetery. It was very rare that someone wanted to go. So let's do it. It's an opportunity maybe to encourage, I guess, people to come into the new cemetery." So they came back an hour later with the money. She consented to take the husband to the cemetery. Now the new cemetery was quite a distance away. It was far away. Right? Had to buy a new plot of land. So after carrying the deceased, right, for a little bit on the way, they decided to stop in a tavern to get a cafe, get a coffee, a tea, whatever it is, a beer in the tavern. At that point, he realized that something. They took a little break. Boom, popped over the coffin. The guy ran away as fast as he could. People rushed inside the tavern to go tell the Chevra Kadisha, we just saw Tehiyat HaMetim, resurrection of the dead. This was happening. The Chevra Kadisha understood that they got scammed, they got tricked, and they lost 1,000 rubles. A few days later, someone in the city died, but this time it was true. All right? The Chevra Kadisha went to the family and explained their offer. The family says, listen, we'll agree to send our deceased to the new cemetery, but we want the money up front. We want 1,000 rubles up front. The Chevra Kadisha says, no. We're not doing this again. A few days ago, a woman told us these same words, and we ended up losing 1,000 rubles. Not interested. So they decided that this time they're going to give the 1,000 rubles up front, but they're going to be more careful to make sure that the guy doesn't escape. So when they reached the tavern, they tied up the hands and feet of the deceased, inside the coffin. They want to make sure this guy's not running away. One of the members of the Chevra Kadisha told the comrades, you fools, this guy's actually dead. This guy don't need to tie him down. You should have tied down the other person because he was alive. But this time it's for real. You have nothing to worry about. So the rabbi of Slonim went and told the community members, he said, you don't get it. When you hired professional hazanim, that's when you should have made a contract with them, because these guys were the best the best in the area. But this Chazan, this guy's not going anywhere because he's not that good. He's not that good. So what are you going to tying up a guy signing to a contract for 10 years? No other community wants him. There's no reason to bind him with a contract. So this teaches us a lesson also about a parnasah. Some people, they try to bind their parnasah. They try to sign it to a contract. I'm going to make sure that my parnasah never leaves. There's no need to do that. Your parnasah isn't going anywhere. The parnasah is destined to come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no reason to tie it down. Schar mitzvah. The reward for performing a mitzvah is you get to perform another mitzvah. All right? The more mitzvot that a person does, the greater reward there is that you get another opportunity to perform a mitzvah. That's the idea of the bitachon. Never worrying, because he knows that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to provide him whatever he needs. He's going to allow a person through that bitachon to perform more mitzvot, to learn more Torah, to do more chesed. Bitachon is refreshing. It's liberating. That's the great amazing thing about it. Similar to a story that we've mentioned here before in this class of a mashal of a king who announced that he was going to grant all of his subjects whatever they want on their birthday. So one person asked for a village, he gave him a village. Another person says, I want a high-ranking position in the government. He says, okay, it's yours. Another person says, I want a box full with treasures. Yalla, it's yours. Finally, the chacham comes to the king. The king says, what do you want? It's your birthday. What do you want? He says, I want permission to speak with the king every single day. That's what I want. I want to have a private conversation with the king every day, and his request was granted. And he was with the king every single day, and then once you become friendly with the king, he was able to ask for whatever he wants. Some things are so good that everything else pales in comparison. What reward can we give to a person who has bitachon? If you give him money, he needs the money, he has full bitachon. He has more than that because he has bitachon. He knows he's never going to be lacking anything. He has full faith and trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The best reward for bitachon, to have more bitachon. That's sechar mitzvah. There was once a wealthy person in the presence of the Brisker Rav, and the Brisker Rav said this divrei Torah, that there's nothing better than bitachon. And the wealthy person says, Rabbi, Hazak Baruch. That was a great divrei Torah. In Yiddish, that was a great vort. Which they call divrei Torah, small good. That was a great vort. So the Brisker Rav looked at him and goes, yeah, you liked it? He goes, yeah. He goes, so why don't you stop working all these hours that you're working and driving yourself nuts? Why don't you start learning a little bit more in the Bet Midrash? Come earlier in the Bet Midrash. You don't have to work so many hours. Come less. You believe in bitachon. You believe HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to support you. You can rely on him. So the guy says, yeah, but I need the money. I said it's a good divrei Torah, but I didn't say I was going to do anything different because of that. So the Brisker Rav says, your response reminds me of a story that took place with my grandfather, Rav Chaim Brisk. Because once it was a meshulach, guy collecting money, was away from his home for half a year raising funds. And his last stop before returning home was in the city of Brisk. But in Brisk, he lost all of his money. And he didn't know how it happened. He went home one day, he lost all of his money. So he came to Rav Chaim Brisk and in hysteria. He goes, Rabbi, please help me. I spent half a year collecting money. I come over here, and now I lost all of it. Half a year of toil is gone. You got to help me. So Rav Chaim, he saw the Meshulach. He says, you bought a new suit in Brisk. When you took off your clothes to try the suit, someone must have stolen the money. That's probably what happened. And the guy began to cry. What's going to be with all that money? He goes, listen, come back in a few days. I'm going to speak with some wealthy people. Bezrat Hashem, I'll give you the money that you lost. A few days later, the Meshulach comes back to Rav Chaim Brisk, and Rav Chaim gives him more money than what the guy lost. And he was so grateful. But now he was ashamed so much that he cried so bitterly over the money that he lost. And he went to Rav Chaim and he said, Rabbi, it wasn't the lost money that made me so upset. I was mostly upset with myself, he said. I felt like a fool because I was negligent with the money. That's why I was so upset. It wasn't the money that I lost. He was embarrassed to admit that he made such a scene over money. So Rav Chaim looks at me and says, oh, really? I thought you were crying over the money. So I understand that the problem wasn't the money. The problem was your incompetence. The problem was your negligence. If that's the case, leave the money with me. I know good people who can use it. He goes, no, but I need the money. All of a sudden, he stopped the rabbi over there. So he said, what you said is similar to that story. When you hear a nice divrei Torah and bitachon, do you internalize it? Is that something that is really, really meaningful to you? Or are you just very nice, but I'm going to move on with the same life? The truth is, with every divrei Torah that we learn, anything you hear, any drasha you hear from a rabbi, anytime you hear an online lecture or whatever, a nice idea, there's something you have to stop and think about just for 10 seconds and try to make it change your life in some way for the better. I want to end this evening with a midrash, again connected to the opening of this parasha, that Bnei Israel, or katit lamaor, this idea of olive oil and the purity of olive oil being used to light the menorah. It's the opening midrash in the Midrash Rabbah. The midrash is unbelievable. The pasuk says, "Ve'ata tetzave Bnei Israel." Now you shall command Bnei Israel that they veikhu elecha, that they shall take for you shemen zayit zach, pure olive oil, katit lamaor, pressed for illumination, la'alot ner tamid, to kindle a lamp continually. And the midrash wonders this word elecha, veikhu elecha, they will take for you. She just says veikhu, they shall take shemen zayit zach. The word elecha appears superfluous. So what's the meaning of it? It seems that there's a connection between olives and Bnei Israel and the Jewish people. Moshe, of course, Hashem was talking to Moshe, Veikhu elecha, take for you, but Moshe is a representative of the entire people. So Midrash quotes a pasuk in Sefer Yirmiyahu, and it says, Hadahu dichtiv, this is what is written, Zait ra'anan yefe peri toar kara Hashem shemecha. A leafy olive tree, beautiful with shapely fruit. That's what Hashem has called. So we see that Bnei Israel is compared to the olives or the olive tree, based on what Yirmiyahu is saying over here. So the Midrash asks, V'chi lo nikreu Yisrael ela bazayit hazeh bilvad? Were the Jewish people only called after the olive tree? V'alo bechol minei ilanot na'im umsubachim nikreu Yisrael. The Jewish people have been compared to and called after all kinds of other beautiful trees and praiseworthy trees. Begefen ute'ena, the grapevine, the fig tree. Te'ena, shneimar, according to Pesukim, Batamar, you have the date tree, Zot komatech tameta betamar, as we say in Shira Shirim. Ba'erez, the cedar tree, shneimar, ke'erez ba'levanon yiskeh, that's in Tehillim. Be'egoz, the nut tree, el ginat egoz yaradti, lirot be'ibeh nahal, also in Shira Shirim. And the Midrash goes on and on, speaking of how Bnei Israel is compared. Just wondering, why did Yirmiyahu specifically say olives? Uba Yirmiyahu lomar zayit ra'anan lefi peri toar. So the Midrash says, Ela ma hazayit hazeh ad shehu be'ilano megargerin oto. The reason why Yirmiyahu intended to make the following analogies is just like the olive, while it's still on the tree, it's selected for extra ripening. So what the idea here is that when the harvester first begins to pick the olives, he selects certain olives, choice olives, because he's a professional, to leave on the tree a little bit longer to allow them to soften somewhat, which would facilitate a much easier extraction of the oil when it's pressed. That's the idea of megargerinoto. Ve'achar kach moridinoto min hazayit v'nechpat. And afterward, the olive is brought down from the olive tree and squeezed. Umeshachoftin oto. And after it's squeezed, ma'alin oto lagat, it's brought up to the press. Ve'notnin otam b'matchan. And it's placed in a mill. Ve'achar kach tochanin otan. And then it's ground. Ve'achar kach makifin otan b'chavalim. And then they're wrapped in ropes. Umevi'in avanim. And then stones are brought to press down on them more. Ve'achar kach notnim et shumnan. And only after all this does it give the oil. After all that, kach Yisrael. This is the Jewish people. This is what Am Yisrael is. When the Jews are experiencing good times, enjoying good times, they soar to great heights. They're left to ripen on the tree, so to speak. That's what they are. However, when they sin, as the Midrash is going to soon explain, they repent only after they see troubles. Right? They have to be cast down from the tree. The Midrash says, so too the Jewish people. Ba'in umot ha'olam, the other nations from the world come, v'choftim otam, and they beat them. Mimakom lamakom, and then they drive them from place to place. V'chovshim otam, and they imprison them. V'choftin otam, and they bind them bekolarin, with neck chains. Umakifin otam, and then they surround them tartionin, with soldiers. Ve'achar kach osim teshuvah, and that's when the Jewish people, they do teshuvah. The Hakadosh Baruch Hu oneh lahem, and then God answers them. God answers them. And he brings a pasuk. Vechen, and that's a pasuk that Yirmiyahu meant. Zait ra'anan yefi peri to'ar. The leafy olive tree, beautiful with shapely fruit. Yirmiyahu's intent by comparing the Jewish people to the olive tree was not with regards to its beauty, but rather, like the olive, they only emit their oil when subjugated to harsh treatment. And this is what the Midrash says. That just like an olive needs to be beaten to release its oil, so too Bnei Israel is oppressed to induce the nation to repent. Now, many Mefarshim read this Midrash, and they point out a difficulty. Yirmiyahu's comparison of Am Yisrael to the olive tree was intended to be a praise. It was intended to highlight them, to highlight the positive qualities. But yet, when the Midrash goes on, we see that, it mentions the shortcomings of Jewish people. Why isn't Midrash, describe or express the attributes of Bnei Israel, to see that Bnei Israel is falling, refusal to repent, and God has to send the enemies to chain them up and imprison them and beat them only so that they can do teshuvah? So the answer is that this interpretation also presents a virtue. It presents Bnei Israel in limelight, not just as a fault. The oil of the olive, unlike the juice of all other fruit, actually, even according to halacha, is deemed separate and distinct from the fruit flesh. In fact, many Sfaradim, we Moroccans, as well, in Shulchan Aruch, says that the beracha for olive oil is actually borei periyayis. Every other, you extract juice from an apple, it's shakol niyabidvaro. But olive oil has a special quality. There are some exceptions, but olive oil has a special quality that many poskim say it's borei periyayis because it's separate from the flesh of the fruit. It's distinct. It's on its own. There is a tiny reservoir of oil that is there within the shell of the olive. It's not absorbed in the flesh of the olive. The oil that emerges when the olive is crushed existed already from the beginning, from the start. And now it's just revealed. So too Bnei Israel. When Bnei Israel transgresses and performs averot, that sin is only outward. But the essence remains pure. There's a hidden cavity inside the olive that contains pure oil. And yet, yes, a Jew might act sinfully and outwardly, maybe have bad midot, but that's his outward appearance. What is inward, his innermost, what's concentrated inside of him is something that is totally pure. So when Bnei Israel are beaten, when they're oppressed by the other nations, when they're moved to repent through suffering, that repentance, that teshuvah, strips away all of the physical. It strips away that shell of sin that is distancing them from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and what you're left with is the oil of the olive, what is unaffected by the sin. The Rambam famously says this with regards to the validity of a divorce, of a get that's obtained from a husband by the courts through the use of force. Now, what's interesting is, and that the get, that if the courts was to give the get, extracted from the husband, give it to the lady, it's kosher. And the problem with this is that the husband needs to give it willingly. Now, how's this? Fine, here, take it, right? But is that really willing? It's not really willing. So how's it possible? So the Rambam explains in Hilchot Girushin that an unbelievable chidush, one that's quoted many, many times, is that every Jew in the depths of his heart has a desire to perform the Torah and mitzvot. No matter where you are, no matter what level of observance you are, every Jew deep down inside wants to hear and obey the word of Chachamim and follow the Torah and mitzvot. And yes, it seems like it's being forced, but really deep down inside, he wants to do what's right. And therefore, the oppression to which Bnei Israel is subjected to, that spurs the nation to repent. And that's how the Yetzer Hara is totally vanquished and dissolved, because the goodness of Bnei Israel is revealed deep down inside. And that's how olives differ from all the other fruits that way. But they also differ from all other fruits in a different way. The liquid that the olive produces is not just a new food, it's a new entity. It's a fuel. It's a source of light. It's a source of heat. So even Bnei Israel, when they're mired and they're drowning in averot and they're drowning in sin, they nurture themselves with this light, with this holy light of their neshama, the light of Torah, the light of their holy soul. And it's the work of the Jew, the job of the Jew, to constantly find ways to remove all the blockage and everything that is hindering their connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which usually comes through the material aspect. And sometimes that has to be done through suffering. Sometimes it's the suffering which brings a person to do teshuvah. But even more effective is the repentance that comes from a person's own desire to improve. And that's what, in fact, I didn't continue the Midrash, but the next comparison that the Midrash gives, how the Bnei Israel is compared to olives, is that the oil that comes from the olive oil, it cannot intermingle with other liquids. The olive oil does not does not mix, and so too Bnei Israel also doesn't mingle, or at least not supposed to mingle with the other liquids. And the oil always rises to the top, and Bnei Israel stands above the other nation. So what's the connection, says the Ketav Sofer? He says it really connects to what we said at the beginning, which compares the persecution of Bnei Israel to the beating of the olives to release the oil. Bnei Israel are often influenced by the other nations. We see it every day, no more than this century. Bnei Israel are influenced by the ways of the other nation, and then they become scattered, they become assimilated, they're indistinguishable from their host country. Are you a Canadian? Are you an American? Or are you a Jew? A lot of people can't answer that question. A lot of people will say, I'm Canadian first, I'm American first, and then I'm Jew second. It's unfortunate, but that's the truth. So one believes that once you reach that state, that's it, you're done. You can never come back. That the attitudes or the influences of the nation have penetrated Am Yisrael so much that teshuvah, forget about it, no longer possible. This guy is long gone. There's no way he can come back from this. But the Midrash is telling us otherwise. The Midrash says, no, Bnei Israel, like the olive oil, never truly intermingles with the others. You'll try, you'll mix it up, right? Everyone did a science experiment when you're a kid, right? But eventually it floats back to the top. It does, it may appear that the Jews are immersed in the ways of the culture, the alien culture that surrounds them, and that really nothing is distinguishing themselves from the others. But that's not true. In the deepest recesses of their heart, deep down inside, the chosen people remain separate. They remain unaffected. It's a temporary effect that they're going through. But when they really, really want to go through deep, they can rise to the top. What brings them to the top? Again, sometimes it's the suffering. Sometimes God has to send a few messages. Sometimes God has to smack you up a little bit. He has to, break your arm, back pain, whatever it is. Everyone goes through their own trials and tribulations. But that suffering is what goads a person to do, to go through and to find the teshuvah, that the regret, the self-reproach, the introspection that person goes through. Sometimes it has to come through some difficult times, and through those periods of lashes and beats by other nations or from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's how a person's able to shake off the remnant, shake off the flesh of the olive, and actually reach the fuel, reach the oil, reach the light. Right? Once it's pressed, once it's katit lamaor, it's lamaor, it's for illumination. That's what brings us to the top. That's what allows us to float above all the other nations. And that's what enables us to come closer to Hashem, just like the flame rises upwards, up to Shamayim. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We wish you a wonderful night. Be well.